we are now going to go into our final keynote of day one of the G4C Festival. It's been an inspiring day, but I know you feel the same way. We're just getting started. A little housekeeping. Tonight, we do have the G4C Awards right here on the main stage, and tomorrow there'll be another fantastic day of inspiring sessions, networking, and of course, games. But first things first, I am thrilled to introduce to our next keynote. It's a woman that I've known for a long time, and I'm just so thrilled that she is with us today. She does incredible work. We just talked in our last session about youth and you know, us as young people, and Sara DeWitt, who is the head of PBS KIDS. Let's go back. We'll go back on my thing. Head of PBS KIDS cares more deeply about this and does such important work on the most trusted public service that we have. So this is a moment where children's gaming spaces, right, are becoming commercialized, shaped by ads, in-app purchases, and opaque algorithms. But PBS KIDS remains committed to designing games that support learning first and foremost. We've seen things happen in the US about funding, but what happens when funding cuts put that model under threat? And what does the future hold in an era when curated, research-backed play matters more than ever? So here to present our final keynote and talk of the day, please give a warm welcome to Sara DeWitt, Senior Vice President and General Manager of PBS KIDS. Sara, woo!
Hi, everyone, and thank you for being here. It's always so great to be in this space and to be with so many people who are so passionate about games. I was trying to think of a good transition from the last session, and I was trying to think, like, has Mark Wahlberg ever been in a PBS KIDS show? I don't know. Can you? I know Matt Damon has. I was trying to think of a Boston. But I work in both television and in games, and the number one thing that kids do on screens is play games. I mean, this is the way they do it, and we all know how powerful they can be for learning, for connection, and it's really important that our youngest gamers really have positive experiences in these spaces. But I want to be honest, right now, this landscape is really rough for young kids, and I'm talking about very young children. Most of the kids' gaming spaces, there's this expectation that games should be free. And that means that the revenue model is driven by ads, by extending playtime, by also pushing in-app purchases, and really opaque algorithms. These aren't good for kids. And even some things that are good game design for grown-ups are actually not so great for kids. And so we are really trying to think about how we push against this. The University of Sydney recently did a review of popular children's games and found that 14 out of 15 titles used monetization tactics that researchers concluded would be illegal in any other consumer market. So it's not just age gating, it's also thinking about intentional design. What is happening within a game itself? We believe in the power of games for good, as I know all of you do as well, both on the content side and on the design side. All kids should have access to high-quality games. And I'm talking today really about our youngest gamers. PBS KIDS is focused on games for kids 2 to 8, so very young, kind of their first gaming experience in many cases. But I want to acknowledge, before I jump into that our member stations and PBS Learning Media also do some great interactive experiences for kids in middle and high school. There's a space for public media across the board for all audience in terms of games. But today we're going to focus on those youngest kids. And PBS KIDS has been around for more than 25 years. We have been in the gaming space specifically. We have a huge library, one of the biggest for very young children. And it is a free library of non-commercial educational games for kids. And it's grounded in research and accessibility and in child development, rather than in clicks or commerce. PBS KIDS averages, just in the United States, 325 million streams, and over 82 million game plays per month. And we are the #1 trusted media source for parents. Our incentives aren't around getting kids to play endlessly or to trick them into playing a game. It's about learning and engagement, accessibility, and child development. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this aspect, how we move the needle in terms of content today, but here are just a few of the research studies that talk about how really these games can help skills get developed by young children. In literacy, in math, in computational thinking, there are more and more of these that are out there for you to learn from, things that we publish for the industry because we want people to be able to learn from this information. But exactly 1 year ago, almost to the day, PBS was defunded. Perhaps you're aware of that. I think I just heard a little hiss. Y'all, we're still here, first of all. PBS KIDS is still here. But it means that in the last year, we've really had to grapple with this question. What's at stake when federal funding for public non-commercial media disappears? It's not just that we lose access to research-based games. It would be terrible for this library to disappear for kids. But public media has also set a bar for the industry. We are really focused on responsible gaming for our youngest audiences, and we regularly hear that our games have inspired developers to mimic what we do. You know, and copying is not bad. As long as there's no IP violation, we want there to be more good content out there for kids. I was once speaking at South by Southwest, and a 16-year-old girl raised her hand and said, I got into gaming because of Rough Men, because of a game I played on pbskids.org, and I want to be a game developer when I grow up. This is the type of thing we want to inspire with kids. So the consequences of something like that PBS Kids Games Library going away could reverberate in even broader ways than just the games disappearing. It could also really affect what's happening in the industry, because so much intention goes into game creation and putting kids at the center of everything we do in public media. So I'm going to walk you through some of the ways that we really tangibly think about how we develop to make sure that kids are always first. So first of all is representing our audience. And our audience is very young children, as I said, ages 2 to 8. There's an incredibly broad spectrum of abilities here. I'm sure many of you have met with folks who are like, we do preschool games, or we do games for 2 to 10. There's so much variation within that. And so here's an example here. Speaking of Rough Men, this is from Team Hamster. And this is a game where kids are creating their own game levels. This is from GBH Kids in Boston. And so 5-year-olds here, you see it's pretty simple, pretty rudimentary. 6-year-olds, a little more complexity. Check it out at 7. We've got ramps, we've got pulleys, we've got a lot more happening, and then 8, you've got a system. You've got something really interesting going on here. This huge developmental leaps in what happens from age to age. And that means that you've got to be able to think about every single one of those levels as kids are playing. It's also really important to take into account the topics that parents are looking for the most, what they really kind of most need. And some of this is really unexpected. So when I say PBS Kids, you probably think of letters and numbers, but it's also school readiness, and it's also getting prepared for school and life. So what I want to talk about now is bathrooms. So, potty training is a really critical milestone for every family, and games can help. Fred Rogers Productions did these games for Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood about potty. They've done multiple potty games and songs. But this particular game I wanted to highlight because the first version, the first idea, only had one location, and that was Daniel's house. And when they went into play testing, a lot of parents were saying, oh no. I mean, sometimes you also have to go when you're on the go. Like there's a lot of times when we're out with kids, they need to go to the bathroom, and it's a really scary experience. And so the game added a train station and also a porta potty. And the response to this has been really strong. It also required going into a lot more detail. So this is a slide from the game development process when we were doing testing. And this is really looking at the lock on a porta potty. This is really complicated. And this means we had to figure out a way, the Fred Rogers Productions team had to figure out a way for this to make sense to a preschooler. Because this can be a scary experience in the real world. And as we're designing for younger gamers, we're also really thinking about that real world and trying to make sure that we are replicating the play patterns that are really natural for kids. These are good jumping off points, because thinking about the ways that kids actually play also can inspire them to take this play offline as well. So a very basic play pattern is peekaboo, and I want to share a video that a parent fan posted.
And count to 3, and then find us. 1, 2, 3, go!
It's me! You found me!
You found me! You found all of us! Let's keep playing! Close your eyes and count to 3, and then us!
I love playing this video because it's a reminder of how young our audience really is. And, I mean, he can't even say, come find us, but he's hearing those sounds, they are with it. So accessibility is the next thing I really want to talk about. This is something that we spend a lot of time thinking about, but in 2 ways. The first way we think about accessibility is the actual devices that kids are playing on. Because most kids are on hand-me-down devices or on older devices, regardless of their income level. And we need to make sure that everything we do really degrades gracefully on those older devices. We need it to work on a laptop in a community center. We also need to think about where kids have Wi-Fi and where they don't. And a lot of kids don't have great broadband at home. So we have been very committed to making sure that all of our content can be downloadable and played offline. But when we were defunded last year, we lost over 30% of our staff. And one of the things we had to cut was the downloadable game feature on the PBS KIDS Games app. And this was the reaction, almost immediately. Boo, you ruined the app. I'm not even putting the really mean ones up here. It was really extreme. This is the type of feature that not only really mattered to the public, it became a part of families' routines. And it was so painful when it went away. I'm really happy to share that we were able to find a donor who helped us close the gap to be able to reintroduce this feature. And some of these reviewers have even updated their reviews since we put it back. But it takes a really consistent funding model to be able to support these kinds of features. And a lot of companies aren't doing this. They aren't offering this for families. I mentioned that there are 2 accessibility goals. The other one is also thinking about children's differing visual and hearing needs, also learning needs, and neurodivergence. So PBS KIDS games come with a range of accessibility features that have all been designed with universal design for learning principles in place. And that means functions like sound controls, audio controls, closed captioning, keyboard controls, and the ability to pause. And one of the things we also have learned through this is that that ability to pause, to take a beat and decide what to do next, is really important for kids. It allows them to take a minute to think. It doesn't keep them constantly focused, but allows them to make a decision, whether that's to go away and stop playing a game or to choose something else. And so we build this in all the time, and they're really great narrative points to do this. So this is Phoebe and Jay's dance party. You're with the kids, you're coming up with the dance steps that they want to do. You're coming up with a dance party theme. You get to perform their custom dance, and then you have an option to start a new party or do something else. Same with Carl the Collector, Fuzzy Town Freestyles, another game I want to show. This is a skate park, but it was built very intentionally so that you can do open play skating, or you can jump into a specific skating mission. So Carl is our first character, our first lead character on the autism spectrum at PBS KIDS. And in testing this with families with neurodivergent players, this was something that was really important, this ability to really choose and control the experience and to pause. And it just kind of reinforced for us across the board that this is important for all kids, but can be really helpful for some families. We also know that when kids see, positive representations of kids who look like them on screen, their success in school is greater. And that means that we have to really authentically represent our characters in all of our games. So back to Carl for a second. When we were doing the games, we wanted to make sure that that character was authentic in all the ways he was in the show itself. And that meant that we also needed animations of Carl stimming. So if you don't know what stimming is, that is a self-stimulation movement that autistic people use to regulate emotion. So rocking or jumping, but in this case, Carl wiggles his fingers. You see this here? So we brought that into the games as well, and parents noticed. They thanked us for putting this extra little piece in there because it was another connective moment with their own children. And just last week, Fred Rogers Productions launched the Don Quixote Rainbow Tree Treasures game, and it's a playground that's inclusive for kids with varying abilities. And so you can see this is really fun to play. It's got ramps and elevators, lots of things to explore, but it's also really thinking about different characters' strengths and what they're able to do. So for example, there's a log there, and Jeff Mouse, who's in a motorized wheelchair, is the only one who can go through that log to get to the watering can. It also isn't wide enough for him to turn around in it. That isn't realistic, so he has to back out as well. We always work with advisors, and in this case, FRP, Fred Rogers Productions, was working with an advisor who uses a power chair to help guide all of the experiences in this game. So I mentioned making sure we're authentically representing kids in our audience, but also we want to give them meaningful connections between the digital and the offline experiences. So this game is from our show, Lila in the Loop. Lila focuses on computational thinking. So in this case, the skill is really breaking down a project into discrete steps. And one of the project advisors for this show is also a hairstylist. And so she gave guidance on different styles and styling tools, and specifically those steps that kids needed to go through to create the hairstyle. So let's take a look.
Let's get styling.
Come on, check me out.
Choose the hairstyle I should have.
Twist. Wait.
Amazing!
Can't believe your eyes.
I make this look good.
I know you see me.
Accessorize!
Look over here, tell me what you see. Now don't you ever take your eyes off me.
It looks so good, Stu.
Beautiful.
A brand new game from Lila in the Loop. Play now on PBS KIDS.
So this is a very popular game, and the feedback we've been getting from viewers has been great. The playtime is incredible. But here you'll see a comment from a teacher who saw students playing in their free time creating hairstyles. And it reminded her of how important it is for kids to really see themselves reflected in the things that they watch and they play. And this is exactly why we're doing what we're doing at PBS KIDS. But I know that all of you know that when you are creating a game, you're not just focused on a game. You're thinking about that whole ecosystem in which the kid resides. And this means for us really watching how kids are engaging with games across other platforms as well. And one of the really big things we've been watching is how many kids are watching playthrough videos on YouTube. And if you've watched a lot of these, I have 2 young gamers myself, you know that they also involve a lot of yelling and sometimes some swearing, and not things necessarily that the audience of 2 to 8 should be necessarily seeing, even if it's around a game that they really love or want to play. So we asked the question, what would a PBS Kids approach to playthrough videos look like? And I'd like to show you where we landed.
Hi, I'm Agent Oakland from Oscu, aka the Odd Squad Gaming Unit. And here is Agent Olindo. Our job is to play video games.
Well, it's not technically our job.
Right, but it's something we really like to do. These are just some of the games we like to play on the PBS Kids Games app. But back to Olindo and me. We work for an organization run by kids. But on the side, we play games that are curious, artastic, and especially odd. We are the Odd Squad Gaming Unit, aka Oscu. Game on!
So obviously this is a spin-off of our show Odd Squad. We're rolling out 52 installments of this. And we've already seen in the data that the games that they feature on Oscu are driving gameplays on the PBS Kids Games app, platforms that we know are really safe spaces for kids, the Games app and pbskids.org. So beyond platforms, we really want to make sure that we are promoting play in the real world. And I've heard this come up a lot today in this conference. We know from decades of research that when kids engage with their parents, even if they just have a conversation about what they're watching or playing, the learning gains are greater. And we know that there are ways to be really transparent about this, to make it really easy for parents. So using a game that's already a known mechanic for parents can be a great way to invite them into play. And one of the things I love about this game is that we're already hearing from parents that they enjoyed playing dominoes with their kids digitally, and then that prompted them to play dominoes on their own away from the screen as well. This is one of the games we also offer in Spanish, so another way to invite parents in who might not be as comfortable in the gaming spaces that their kids are playing in. So I hope you're seeing that a lot of time and care goes into everything we do. But one of the things that has been affected is by this funding, is thinking about what's next. We have always tried to look forward to say, what are the new technologies coming up, and how do we make sure that we are taking a non-commercial approach to them? And that means also in AI. So a project that we had underway, funded by the National Science Foundation in partnership with UC Irvine and Ying Zhu at Harvard, was AI-enabled conversational episodes. We had two shows, Eleanor Wonders Why and Lila in the Loop, where we'd built out additional segments of the episode that were more gamified, where the character would break the fourth wall and have a conversation with the kids who were watching the episode. Now, this was not generative AI. The AI was really being used to parse the child's language and to help choose the right prompt that was written by the script writers for the show. But what the research saw, and there's published research about this, is that the kids who watched these episodes with this interactive component had greater learning gains than the kids who just watched the static episode. We know that there is really great power in this kind of work. This isn't available publicly, and the funding cuts have put this on hold for now. But I want to make sure that you know that this research is there, because it's beginning to set some best practices for how we could use AI with really young children in ways that are meaningful and developmentally appropriate for them. And we know there is more that we can do right now, and that is really through the power of the storytelling itself. So if I jump over to the TV side, we can start telling more stories that are really preparing kids for the technological world they are living in. So again, from Lila in the Loop, if you've ever watched this show, Lila has a sidekick named Stu, who's kind of a proxy for a computer. And in this episode, her older sister asks Stu to help her with an art project. And in the rush to go to school the next morning, she accidentally grabbed Stu's and turned it in. So then the question for this whole episode is, whose artwork is it now? How does she go ahead and disclose that Stu helped her do it, and models the conversation with the teacher, models the conversation about when you can and can't use a computer to use your own art. To develop art, these are the kinds of conversations we need kids to be having and to be thinking about and to be grappling with, because the regulation around these topics is always behind when it comes to kids' adoption. Kids are in it long before we've caught up. So I really want to make sure that it's really just important that there's a non-commercial funding stream for this kind of work to make sure that we are really doing what's best for kids. So this spring, there was a landscape analysis from Evan Shapiro, the media analyst in Common Sense Media, about the children's space. And it showed that trusted and age-appropriate kids media is growing in demand, but shrinking in investment. So for over 50 years, public media has been uniquely positioned to be really taking on these kinds of challenges to create good content without political or commercial influence. But now things are really harder for us. In this analysis, Evan went on to say that taking away money from PBS and NPR is actually hurting our children because public service media had taken on a larger share of responsibility for funding quality kids content. That's not to say that other people aren't doing quality kids content. It's just that public media across the world had been doing more to really raise the bar. So as a result of the defunding, quality children's media is rapidly contracting, and children are being flooded with even more uncurated content that isn't necessarily good for them. This isn't just bad for kids, it's bad for the industry. And we need to create a space where games that are good for kids are also economically viable. Our hope is that we can continue to really revitalize investment in high-quality gaming so that we can continue this important work of doing really what's best for kids, setting kids up for a lifetime of learning, of critical thinking, media literacy, and really good gaming. And I need to tell you that we're seeing some really good momentum. In the last year, since the defunding, 1 million new donors have come into the public media space, either supporting local stations or PBS. They are really focused on, they're affirming their belief in high quality, non-commercial media. And kids are also getting in the action. We have had kids send in money from lemonade stands. We have had a child in Florida sold shell necklaces at a farmer's market and sent all the money to her local station. But we also got a letter from a 4-year-old named Ronan. And he wrote to say how much he loved playing our games and gave us $10 from his saved up allowance because he was worried we might go away. We put this letter on our bulletin board to be kind of inspirational to the team. And I need to tell you, just last week, Ronan wrote again. And he's 5, and he was pitching us a game idea. So we know that what we do has a real impact for Ronan, for viewers like you, and for gamers like you. This is what the PBS Kids difference is. So thank you.